Hi, my name is Mason Waring. I'm joined here with my colleague, CCK attorney Leah Small, and today we're going to talk about own occupation definitions of disability and long-term disability policies. We're going to talk about what an own occupation definition of disability is, how an insurance company might define your own occupation, and how an insurance company may not take all of the aspects of your job into consideration when defining your own occupation and what impact that might have on your long-term disability claim. So let's get started. Leah, can you talk about what is an own occupation definition of disability?
Absolutely. So the own occupation definition of disability looks at whether the claimant can perform the duties of the occupation they had at the time their disability started. Now, typically under most group policies, this will last for the first 24 to 48 months of disability, and thereafter the claimant may have to meet a more strict definition of disability at that point.
And you file a claim, the insurance company will try to define what your own occupation is. How do they go about doing that?
So one thing that's important to keep in mind is under most policies, they're not going to be looking at how your job was performed at your specific employer. Most policies will say they look at how the occupation is performed in the national economy. So, across the board, how is this occupation typically performed? However, it's important to keep in mind that even with doing that, the insurance company can still sometimes misdefine the occupation. And sometimes that can occur if your job title doesn't match up with your job duties. They just may look at that job title and how it's performed in the national economy and say, that's your occupation for purposes of the claim. But it's really important that they're actually examining the duties and trying to figure out what occupation in the national economy do those duties match up with. And when an insurance company misdefines your occupation, that can result in claim denials. And so as a claimant, one thing you can try and do is when you're completing claim forms, submitting your claim, making sure you're explaining in detail what was required of you, what duties you had to perform in that job.
That's an important point, Leah, the national economy. So I think it bears emphasizing so that there could be a unique part of your job, the way you do your job for your employer. The insurance company doesn't necessarily have to take that unique aspect of the way you do your job for your employer into account. They're going to look at, hey, across the country, how are people doing this work? What are the necessary tasks and responsibilities in doing that? And so it's a really important thing to keep in mind. Another point, there are policies that have definitions that do specifically take the way you do your job into account. Sometimes that's like your occupation. They might phrase it a little differently.
Yeah.
But it's, as always, important to read the policy carefully because sometimes the insurance company is required to consider those special, unique ways you do your job for your employer. It's rare. Typically, it's national economy, but it's something to keep a lookout for.
Absolutely.
So, Leah, sometimes the insurance company will fail to consider all of the aspects of the job. And can you talk about that and how that can impact the long-term disability claim?
Absolutely. And so one of the most common ways we see that occur is the insurance company may be correct about what your occupation is. But when they're evaluating your claim and whether you're disabled from that occupation, they may, for example, look only at the physical aspects of that job and not meaningfully consider the cognitive aspects. For example, we see a lot with claimants who have chronic pain and might be on narcotic pain medications that the insurance company says, you had a sedentary desk job, you should be able to perform that even with pain. But they don't take into account that the job required extreme focus and concentration, and pain medication can be distracting and would prevent you from being able to focus on job tasks like your occupation required.
Something we always consider too is, can you do that work reliably and consistently? And so if you could do your occupation, an hour a day, that doesn't necessarily mean you can do it full time. You got to be a little careful there because the policy wording can allow for certain things but not others. But it's something to consider. If you could push yourself for an hour a day, it's an important question to ask. If you could push yourself for an hour a day to do your own occupation, are you disabled or not? And so I think to evaluate that, got to look at the evidence. You need to look at the policy really carefully, and that's something that we do for our clients regularly.
Absolutely.
So if you have questions about your long-term disability claim, if you've been denied, please give us a call. It costs nothing to see if we can help. Our number is 401-331-6300. You can find us online at cck-law.com. Please like this video and subscribe if you'd like to get future content and leave a comment if you have an idea for a future video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.